Hey guys, this is the Tricate Space Program Beginner's Guide to Model Rocketry. This is like a new series I'm starting on my channel where I'll just cover a lot of like the intro beginner information stuff for model rocketry. So I hope you guys enjoy and let's get into it. So this is part one, which is kind of like a getting started, introduction. What even is model rocketry? Um, so it's pretty simple. Model rocketry is the smallest scaled, it's like weird wording there, most smallest scaled and most accessible form of hobbyist rocketry. So you're still building real launchable rockets. As you can see right here, that's a real rocket right there. I mean, that's a rocket for all intensive purposes. It's just smaller and cheaper than their larger counterparts. So don't get these two things confused. Don't get model rocketry and amateur rocketry confused. So model rocketry is building and launching rockets with prefabricated motors. Usually refers to low power and or mid power. Can also refer to high power rocketry. It's fun yet way safer than amateur rocketry, which is building your own rocket motors to be launched. Very dangerous. It takes extensive skill and you should not attempt without experience. It's not for total beginners at all. So yeah, model rocketry, as you can see, I say low power, mid power, and high power rocketry. If you're completely new to rocketry, then you wouldn't really know a lot of the terms I'm going to be talking about in terms of like how these three are differently classified. But with motors, and I'll have another video specifically about model rocket motors. Um, but essentially, it's just like how like the total thrust in each motor is divided. So like low power, and usually low power and model rocketry are like one and one. They go together. Sometimes mid power, it's just A through D class motors, which those are like the lowest powered motors, are considered low power. And then like E, sometimes E is considered low power, sometimes it's mid power, but then like F and then G, those are mid power rockets, so they're a little more powerful, higher thrust. Uh, and so the rockets will be bigger. But I mean, for all intensive purposes, they're like pretty much the same. High power is a little different because you need certification and you need like FAA waiver to launch high power rockets. But yeah, model rocketry is pretty much just it's just when you buy the motor itself. Amateur rocketry is when you actually build the motor, which I feel like a lot of people going into it, like they want to build their own motors for some reason, and it's like super dangerous. There's a lot of videos about it on YouTube, which is part of the problem, that make it seem super easy, but there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of accidents come with it. So if you do actually really want to get into amateur rocketry, definitely recommend starting out, getting like the fundamentals down with model rocketry, and then like finding like a mentor, someone who actually knows this stuff, to kind of guide you through that process. Don't just go off like a YouTube video. So yeah, like I said, if you're a beginner, do not try to make your own rocket motor by following a YouTube video or guide. There's a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of guides online. There's a lot that's like wrong. There's like a lot of tutorials on how to make your own model rocket motor. They're called like sugar rockets because they use sugar as the fuel. And they tell you to use PVC as the casing, which is super dangerous. You cannot use PVC as a rocket motor casing because if that blows up, it's going to fracture like a frag grenade. And PVC is not detectable by X-ray, so like those fragments are going to be stuck in you, and it's going to be horrible. So like, just do not go off some YouTube video or guide. Do not even try to like build your own rocket motor. I want to get that out of the way. Don't try that. Just stick to model rocketry itself. So with that out of the way, why should you get into model rocketry? One, I mean, you learn a lot, you build diverse skills. I mean, it's like in designing, like art, painting, it's like spray painting, like all that kind of thing. Also, like a lot of like craft knowledge, just like a lot of stuff you kind of learn through trial and error. You learn like kind of like the scientific process a little bit. It's like scientific in general, and it's satisfying and fun. Like it's super cool to see like the finished product of your build. It's super fun to launch it, and there's a lot that like there is to be enjoyed, and like really you can have a lot of interests, or it like fits into like a lot of interests, like people who like to build. Like for me, my favorite part of the rocket is building it. A lot of people like the spectacle, so they like the launches. Some people just like painting it, designing it, making it look pretty, and it all kind of comes together. So that's really just like a lot of reasons to like model rocketry, a lot of reasons to get into it. And it's also like, it's fairly affordable as far as things go. If you go to like high power rocketry, that changes a lot. Then it's pretty expensive. But like building like little model rockets, like you can you can have the price be pretty low. It's not like super cheap, but it's not too bad. So brief history I want to get into in this video. Part 1. In 1954, Orville and Robert Carlisle developed the first model rocket motor. And then in 1957, the Sputnik 1 launched, and it inspired many young amateurs to try and build rockets of their own. Instance of this is dramatized in the 1999 film October Sky. In many instances, these attempts had tragic results. So again, we're kind of going back to what I was talking about with trying to build your own motors. Like, the tragic results mostly came from trying to build their own motors. But this movie is really good. This is a really good movie. It's about Homer Hickam, who like did a lot of stuff for the space shuttle, which is really cool. But I mean, it's a really cool like feel good movie, where he, like the whole thing, he like lives in I think it's Coalwood, West Virginia, and like everyone in that town's like destined to become a coal miner, but he wants a way out, and he kind of finds it by like trying to build his own model rocket, not really model rocket, amateur rocket, if you will, and winning the science fair to get a scholarship and getting out of that town, going to college. It was a pretty cool movie. I like it a lot. But yeah, but anyways, 1957 again, Orville here sent samples of his rocket to G. Harry Stein, an RSO at WSMR, hoping to use his motors as a safe outlet for the hobby. So yeah, again, they made their own model rocket motors. I'm pretty sure Orville Carlisle was like teaching at the time, and he was like using them to demonstrate some like basic principles of rocketry. But yeah, he sent them over to this guy G. Harry Stein to use these motors as a safe outlet for the hobby. So, brief history part 2. Stein tested these samples, and he wrote a rocketry safety handbook. He then started the company Model Missiles Incorporated, MMI, which was the first American model rocket company. So then he approached this guy right here, Vernon Estes, which, if you know anything about model rockets, you'll probably recognize Estes, like a huge brand, pretty much have a monopoly on it, who founded Estes Industries to make a machine to mass produce motors. So this machine, they nicknamed it, I forgot now. I forgot what they nicknamed it. It was on the Wikipedia page that I used to cite all this information. But the whole thing with that machine is it produced model rockets really fast, really efficiently, way faster than Stein ever needed. His business eventually faltered, and Estes began producing rockets of their own. And the rest is kind of history. There's like a lot more that happened. I mean, there was like high power rocketry started to kind of get big. When this is like just a random fun fact, not really anything to do with model rocketry. It's more high power rocketry. Eventually, there was like a lawsuit or whatever that got ammonium perchlorate, which is like the propellant they use in more high power motors, and like the Estes model rocket motors that use black powder as the fuel because it's like super easily mass producible, but they were able to get that to not be considered a high explosive, which made it like legal to use them in model or high power rockets. So that's why high power rocketry got big in like the 90s, I think. That's when it started to really like grow. But anyways, yeah, a lot more history, but this is like the beginning, the origins of model rocketry. So yeah, this guy, very important to model rocketry. All three of these guys, Carlisle, Stein, Estes, all like huge in the development of rocketry. Anatomy of a model rocket. Now, this is the first little diagram. They get more confusing. So first up, we have the nose cone. This reduces drag as far as like the outer profile goes. It like pierces the air. As they'll go through, they'll just direct the air, reduce the drag. The fins, on the other hand, they stabilize the rocket, so they keep it going straight. The body tube is just the main structural frame. Everything's like attached to it. This is like the base piece right here. I wanted to talk quickly. I didn't like put any of this on the diagram, but I want to just add there's like two main things physics wise for how like they're stabilized. There's a center of gravity, which is like also known as the center of mass. That's somewhere. And there's also a center of drag, which is where the forces of like air resistance affect the rocket most. And you're gonna want, when making like your own rocket, and I'll like detail this more in another video about making your own rocket, you want the center of pressure to be further behind the center of mass. which this is kind of what the fins will do. Like there's a lot of like um, apps or not apps, software that you can download like OpenRocket that helps you like simulate like a rocket design, and it'll show you where the center of pressure, center of gravity might be, and you want the center of gravity to be a little bit further forward than the center of pressure, and that just helps, or that's just what makes the rocket stable. Um, Sorry, by the way, I do have a cough. I'm a little bit sick. Anyways, the next part, this is like the aft and internals, and internals. And this is what goes on the inside of the back of a rocket. So here you have, this is supposed to be the body tube. It's transparent in this diagram. You can see the fins. So these are the centering rings. And these are like, usually like cardboard for model rocket. They're like rings that help center this guy in the middle, which is the motor mount tube. And they kind of come in like pretty standardized sizes to match with the size of model rocket motors. So there's like the 13 millimeter, 18 millimeter, 24 millimeter, 29 millimeter, and so on, so on. And since that will not always match the size of the body tube, you have these centering rings right here that will hold it in place in the center. I mean, sometimes you don't really need the centering rings. Sometimes the body tube will be the exact same size as the motor mount that you want to use, in which case that's called a minimum diameter rocket. You have the motor block back here, and that prevents, so you'll have like the rocket motor itself like in the tube, and this will be glued in to the back here. There'll be like a hole. This is still like a ring, but it'll just prevent it from like, once it like goes off, it'll be pushed in that way. So this will just stop it from, shooting out that way. On the other hand, the motor hook, this prevents the rocket motor from falling out. So this will usually just be like a thin piece of like aluminum or like metal, aluminum or whatever. And this will just be able to like kind of bend open or closed, and that will just kind of like lock the motor in place so it doesn't like come out this way. And then centering rings, motor mount tube, that's all that. Next up is recovery systems. So there's kind of a lot to go into for recovery, but I'm gonna try to simplify it. Right, you're gonna have the shock cord right here. This is like usually like elastic. In more higher power, they use like nylon or Kevlar, but it's just like going to be like a long cord that will be attached in the body tube. It'll go up and it'll attach to the nose cone over here. So when the motor finishes, I'll have a video on motors again, how like those work. At the very end, it shoots off an ejection charge, which will like shoot out gases up this way, and that like the pressure there will launch the nose cone out. And so one thing you can see right here stuffed in was recovery wadding. This is like fireproof like paper. It's pretty cheap that you can get for model rockets, and this will just protect the parachute and the shock cord because the ejection gas charges are hot, but that'll push the shock cord out, the nose cone out. The shock cord will pull them together, and by pulling it out, it'll also pull out the parachute and it'll deploy it, and that'll just slow down the descent. We know what a parachute does. That'll make sure it doesn't come down like a missile, ballistic, like a lawn dart, and it'll make sure that your rocket comes home in one piece. Excuse me. A couple ways to get started finally. Excuse this really low quality. A is buying a starter kit. Estes and other companies, I cannot get over that quality, but I wanted to use this picture because this is the starter kit that I use to get started with. So, but anyways, other companies like Estes and so on will create these starter kits that include everything that you need, including the rocket itself, the launch pad, the launch controller, even motors, recovery wadding, etc. Make sure you look at the components list to see that it comes with everything you need. I think the one that I got did, other than batteries. You need to get batteries separately. But yeah, just check to make sure there's everything, because sometimes there might be like a couple components that you might need in addition. But again, option B is you can buy the parts individually. So you can pick out a rocket kit that you like, one that catches your eye, then buy everything else from there. So you need the rocket, of course. You need the launch pad, the launch controller. You'll need motors. You'll need recovery wadding. Motors usually include igniters too, and the plug. But you can get extras if you want, in case they fail. Of course, you also need batteries. I mean, that's pretty much all you need. There's also like a lot of the build components for like the rocket itself that won't be included. Like you'll need wood glue for sure, probably like an X-Acto knife, sandpaper. It kind of depends on the kit, so look at it. But I mean, yeah, those three things I use all the time, no matter what. Sometimes they might need super glue. Um, Besides that, like usually, yeah, those four things. Oh, and you need paint, of course. You need spray paint. Well, I mean, you don't need paint, but come on, you need to have paint, right, to make it look pretty. Uh, Option C. This is third, my like terrible quality picture in this slideshow. Sorry about that. You can build your own rocket. Now, notice I'm just saying build your own rocket. If you're really creative, though, you have the means to do it, because parts to build your own rocket. There's like a lot of specific, specialized parts, like a nose cone, body tube. It's kind of hard to get. But if you do have the means to do it, maybe you have a 3D printer and you have like cardboard tubes and whatnot, you can design and build your own rocket. I will have a video on a guide to do this later in the series. But yeah, this is my first like scratch built rocket, the TSP Sky Shrimp Light 1, really long name, like from 2 years ago. You can see the launches of it on my channel here. But yeah, long time ago I built that. Really unconventional build methods. I was making do with what I had. Like, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guides on how to build your own rocket too throughout YouTube. Honestly, I'd recommend just getting like your kit to start out with, so you know like what you're doing kind of. That'll really help you. Serve as like a blueprint for your first scratch built rocket. But if you really want to do this, you can. I would recommend, you could probably build your own launch pad too. If you know electronics well, you can probably build your own launch controller, but for most people I wouldn't recommend that. Definitely, again, don't build your own motor. I say that like 100 times in this video. Don't try to build your own motor. But yeah, anyways, you can also, I will also add, like a lot of these, if you can like find like a club or like a launch site where they like do launches, then really all you'll need is like your own rocket, and a lot of them will provide like launch controllers and launch pad systems. So keep that in mind. But I don't know how many rocketry clubs will be near you. I think there's only like 2 near me, and when I say near, it's like an hour-and-a-half long minimum drive to either one of them, and they only launch like once a month, but they're all like big launch events. Depends on kind of where you are. A couple additional resources I wanted to talk about. One, this series, guys. I got more videos coming soon. Be sure to check them out. They're gonna be great, high quality, amazing stuff. I have a bunch of guides on everything. You know, how to build your own rocket. Like an explanation on motors. I think that's gonna be the next video. Is like a deep dive on motors, like classification and all that, how they work. I might have more advanced guides like how to build a 2-stage rocket, how that works. And so on, so on. So guys, stay tuned for more. But I wanted to recommend these guys right here, Apogee Components. It's an online rocketry vendor, but they have tons and tons of great information. And it's really amazing. It's really what helped get me started, is using Apogee Components as like a big resource. They're trustworthy. There's a lot of online resources too, but like you have to be kind of careful because sometimes they're reckless. Like a lot of videos on YouTube, the advice is not the most sound. Can be kind of reckless and dangerous, so like don't really, be careful what you use as like a resource for this hobby, because it's still rocket science. Like when push comes to shove, you're pretty much doing rocket science, so you kind of gotta be careful, right? But if you like books, you want to read, this is a pretty cool book, Make Rockets by Mike Westerfield. It's part of like the Make series. They also have a book on high power rockets, but a lot of cool guides on that to like build your own rockets. There's a lot of, actually, there's probably a lot more model rocketry books you can find all throughout. So I mean, really whatever floats your boat. But I wanted to highlight these guys right here, this series. Keep on watching it. And Apogee Components, they're so good. They're really good. They also have like a lot of cool kits on there. They're a little pricey though, I will say. They are quite pricey, and their shipping's not the cheapest, but they have some cool kits. So yeah, guys, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully my cough and my dry, scratchy throat wasn't too bothering. But yeah, I hope to continue this series. I want this to be like a really good resource for people who are getting started in model rocketry. So yeah, guys, like and subscribe so I can make more. Thank you guys for watching. Yeah.